I live on the outskirts of the city in a small, abandoned room, but I have 16 iPhones and a Rolex watch, all of which I earned in 3 days of work with my ex-husband's boss. My name is Claire. I'm 38. 3 years ago, I lived with my husband in a high-rise downtown, in a place with white countertops, soft lighting, and a fridge always full of organic snacks. He made decent money. We dined out every weekend, had a joint Netflix account, and shared one car. We were comfortable, but comfort doesn't mean contentment. I always wanted the best. Not out of greed, just a need to feel like I mattered. That I could have what others showed off without hesitation. The new iPhone, the Rolex with the steel blue dial, the bags, the heels, the lifestyle. But my husband didn't get it. He liked Android. Said it did the same things for less. When I showed him pictures of the Rolex, he said, "Your phone tells time. Why do you need 2 clocks?" I stopped showing him things after that. He worked for a man named Victor Gray. Victor wasn't just rich. He was wealthy in the way that made people stop talking when he walked into a room. Sharp suits, gleaming smile, teeth too perfect to be real. One day, my husband decided we should meet. He wants to see who keeps me sane at home, he joked. I didn't expect much. But when Victor saw my phone, he actually laughed. He makes this much money and lets you walk around with that? That screen has cracks inside its cracks. I forced a smile. Victor turned to me. What would you get if it were your choice? The new iPhone Pro Max, I admitted quietly. He looked at my husband. Let her upgrade. But Ryan shook his head. It's a waste. She doesn't need it. Victor raised an eyebrow, then turned to me and said, if he won't, I will. We exchanged numbers before we left. Under the table. Silent, but obvious. A week later, he messaged me. We should talk. About the weather, or about your husband's next raise. I replied, I have 30 minutes. He said, that's all I need. We met at a rooftop cafe. It wasn't about weather. Or raises. He handed me a bag. Inside was the phone I dreamed of. No strings, he said. Unless you want them. I took it. I didn't tell my husband. 2 days later, we ran into Victor at a shopping center. I was with Ryan. Victor was with his wife. We exchanged fake surprise, forced laughter. You guys should come by for coffee sometime, Ryan offered, like an idiot. Victor smiled. How about now? We went back to our apartment. Ryan gave them the grand tour. Victor stayed behind with me in the kitchen. You never said thank you, he whispered. I turned. I didn't think you wanted words. He leaned in. Smart girl. Before I could respond, quick, quiet, dangerous. I didn't stop him. I didn't even flinch. That night, he messaged me again. Tomorrow. My place. I went. He opened the door in a robe. Nothing underneath. The room smelled like spice and power. 3 hours later, I walked home with my hair ruined and the scent of his cologne stuck to my dress. My husband opened the door, sniffed once. He didn't say anything. Maybe it was in my head. The next morning, there was a Rolex on my desk. No note. Just a velvet box and silence. I didn't wear it right away, but I looked at it a lot. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. Lunch. I didn't reply, but I showed up. He had a table already. Ordered wine. Didn't ask about my day. You want more? He said. You need to give more. I nodded. And that night, I did. The next week, I was in his hotel suite again. He talked on the phone while I lay tangled in the sheets. I didn't ask questions. But the gifts got bigger. 16 iPhones. A MacBook. A bracelet. I kept them hidden, deep in my closet. Until I didn't. One morning, I forgot to lock my phone. Left it open on the table. Went to make tea. Ryan found the messages. The photos. The receipts. He didn't yell. Didn't scream. Didn't even cry. He just nodded calmly. Where's the next meet? I froze. I don't know. Find out. And go. I stared at him. He smiled. Please. I messaged Victor. Tomorrow. Same hotel. Same floor. He replied instantly. Wear black. What I didn't know was that Ryan had followed me. Waited in the hallway. And when the door opened, he was already recording. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. Victor's suite door clicked shut behind me with a soft finality. I didn't know what I was walking into, at least, not in full. But I felt the shift. The change in air. The way a moment tilts the second before the fall. He poured wine without a word. His robe loose, the scent of spice and cedar surrounding him. Everything was the same except me. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't even guilty. But on the feeling that I held a world between my fingertips. And all I had to do was squeeze. Victor handed me the glass. Drink. You look tense. I'm not. He laughed. You should be. I'm in a generous mood tonight. He didn't ask about Ryan. He never did. Because in his world, people like Ryan were placeholders. Noise between power moves. But as he stepped behind me, brushing his hand over my shoulder, I noticed something. The door. It hadn't clicked fully. Almost like it was left cracked. Just barely. I looked back at it. Then let it go. An hour passed. Maybe more. When I got up to dress, Victor was already back on the phone, half listening to a broker rattle off numbers that sounded like license plates. I glanced at the table. There was another box. I opened it. A necklace. Thin, delicate, subtle. But the diamonds weren't fake. Victor turned. A small thank you. I nodded. Then he leaned in. Next week, I want to fly you to Miami. I blinked. What about your wife? He smiled. She's allergic to sand. I left the hotel at 3 a.m. When I got home, the house was dark. Ryan's car wasn't in the driveway. I walked inside, dropped my purse on the counter, and turned on the kitchen light. There was a note. For words. We need to talk. The next morning, he was in the living room. Dressed. Calm. Coffee in hand. Watching the local news like it mattered. I walked in quietly. He didn't turn. I know everything, he said. My heart stopped. About what? He looked at me. No emotion. Just calculation. I followed you last night. I recorded everything. Video. Audio. I have it all. I dropped my bag. Ryan. He held up a flash drive. This is your future. Or your end. I sat down. What do you want? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. For now? Nothing. I want to see what Victor does when he realizes he's not untouchable. I shook my head. Please. Don't ruin him. Don't ruin us. His laugh was hollow. You did that already. I'm just finishing the job. He stood. Tossed the flash drive into his briefcase. I'm giving you 24 hours. Tell him. Or I will. I drove straight to Victor's office. Security tried to stop me. He waved them off. What's wrong? He asked. I shut the door. Ryan has everything. He followed us. He recorded us. He's threatening to release it. Victor's expression didn't change. He poured a drink. Sat back. Is he bluffing? I shook my head. He stared at the wall. Then looked at me. This is fixable. How? He leaned forward. I'll offer him something better. A raise. A promotion. Something he can't refuse. You think that'll stop him? Victor smirked. Everyone has a price. That night, Victor called Ryan. Asked to meet. Ryan agreed. They met in a private room at the firm's upper floor. I wasn't invited. But I waited outside. 30 minutes passed. Then the door opened. Victor came out, jaw tight. He didn't say a word. Ryan followed. He looked at me. I said no. Then walked away. Victor looked like he wanted to punch a wall. Instead, he whispered, "Then we destroy him." The next day, things moved fast. Ryan's work laptop was seized. His credentials were revoked. HR sent a message about compliance concerns. Victor was cleaning house. But Ryan didn't disappear. He fought back. Released a clip anonymously. Not the whole video. Just enough to show Victor in his suite. My voice. His hands. The implication was clear. By afternoon, 3 board members called an emergency meeting. By evening, Victor was suspended. Indefinitely. He called me at midnight. What did he send? I told him. He cursed. Then asked, "Do you still have the originals?" I lied. Said no. Ryan changed the locks, told me to leave, said the house was in his name. I packed 2 bags. No protest, no tears, just silence. I moved to a rented room on the edge of town. 1 window, 1 sink. No questions. All my luxury tucked in drawers I never opened. Victor stopped calling. His wife filed for divorce. The company replaced him quietly. No press, just silence. Weeks passed. I tried to call Ryan once. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. Then one day I got a message from an unknown number. A video. Ryan, sitting at a table. He looked into the camera. "This is for you," he said. I hope the Rolex was worth it. Then he reached into a drawer, pulled out a ring, our wedding ring. He dropped it into a glass of water, watched it sink, and turned off the camera. I haven't seen him since. Victor moved overseas, started a consultancy, married again. I hear rumors, but I don't care anymore. I have 16 iPhones, a Rolex, a drawer full of what-ifs, and a view of the alley. Sometimes at night, I hold the phone he gave me and stare at the screen until it fades to black. Because in the end, silence is louder than any confession.